have still prioritized their health and shown up. Over 10,000 of you have, but to this type of training. But I usually host them at 4 in the afternoon, which is 7 Eastern, and that seems to be the time where we can work with most of the members across all time zones, both countries, across the continent. Anyway, this week I was like, you know what? I really want to do something bold. I want to give the best of the best information. I want to give away some amazing gifts, and I want to do it at least twice plus a replay because we need to make sure that everyone feels they as informed and as confident navigating their health decisions as possible. So this is it. This is Speak Menopause. We have quite a bit to cover. There will be a Q&A at the end, and as I was saying, there will also be a replay. So if I hope you don't, but if you have to jump off or jump back in again, or tomorrow you get the replay and you have to fast forward to where you had to jump off, do not sweat it. It's all good. We've got you. Okay, so I think that's all of the housekeeping I have. I want to begin with this question. This is a big old empty room that I created. And the question that I have for you is what brings you here today? Maybe you are here for your own health and your own answers, or maybe you are here because you want to be the person, or maybe you are already the person that your friends go to, that your coworkers go to, that your book club members go to for directions and answers in women's midlife health. So, what brings you here today? What's the question? What's your role? Are you seeing your mother or grandmother this or daughter this weekend, and you want to be able to share one or two takeaways with them? Do pop that into the chat, and then I'm going to just hide that for a little bit. I won't see it while we're presenting, and let's do this. So in my room, there is a big old elephant, and I know you're all familiar with the phrase the elephant in the room. You may also be familiar with a parable about, I think it's 8 people who are, I can't remember if they're blind or they're blindfolded, but they've never seen an elephant before, and they are all approaching the elephant from different places and walking away with an impression of what an elephant is, and they feel very confident, like talking about, oh yes, the person that touched the trunk could describe the trunk, the texture, the length. The person that touched the ear could describe an elephant to a T. It was exactly this. It was big and floppy and flat and smooth. And depending on what part of the elephant you touched, you walked away with a different impression. Well, I think you may have already picked up on this in the Menopause Chicks community if you've been there recently, but menopause is a lot like this elephant in the room. There are many parts of menopause that we are all navigating now. I've been doing this work for 13 years. Probably a lot of this was here 13 years ago, but I can promise you that many of these components have gotten louder. So, at the tail end, if you will, we've got marketers trying to get our attention on Facebook or Instagram or writing really good headlines. We've got product developers who genuinely think that they're making something that is the magic wand solution for women and for menopause. And there's a billion women who have reached menopause in the world today. And so if you know anything about putting together business cases, anytime you present a business case to your boss where you can put 1 billion in that spreadsheet and show how much you will make if you sell to just 1% of that target market, the business case gets approved. So we have a lot of products coming our way. At the top, we've got apps, we've got AI. A lot of members who have been joining the Menopause Chicks community recently have indicated that they heard. I always ask, where did you hear about us? And a lot of answers have been AI sent me here. We've got media at the top who've always played a key role, but the media landscape, the legacy media landscape, has certainly changed over the last decade or so. And a lot of headlines, a lot of hearsay, a lot of predetermined stories that media often try to backfill with, we want to tell this story, let's find someone who fits that profile, which is the opposite of reporting the news, as you know. At the bottom there, we've got the medical community. I mean, so foundational, so important. That would also include health and medical research, treatment research. And then, up at the top, we've got comedy. I have a really weird relationship with comedy when it comes to women's health. It gets my back up a little bit, not because I don't have a funny bone, but because I see comedy productions getting funded and I think, man, like there's 60,000 women in the Menopause Chicks community and none of them show up laughing. They're there to solve real world situations, challenges, problems, if you will. So, what if we could redirect some of that, women's health is a punchline funding and put it towards women's health research? What could we actually accomplish with that? And then at the bottom, I've put ridiculousness as a category, and I'm happy to speak to what that means to me, but I won't take up too much time right now. There's just a lot of ridiculousness coming our way, and we have to be able. The reason I am so grateful that I get to do this long form conversation with you is that we can learn to navigate or discern what is evidence-based, what is meant for us, and what can be pushed aside. And then, of course, I can't forget at the front of the elephant, or maybe you've heard me use the analogy, driving your own health bus is you and me. We are trying to figure this out with all of the other influences on our back. So that has actually led me to being uber focused on making sure that we have the language, the words, the ability to discern all of those messages and to use language as a bridge to close the gap between confusion and clarity, between being dismissed in your health appointment to walking out feeling like you have the best health outcome for you. You could also say language is medicine. It's quite healing when someone feels seen or validated or heard or understood. And language then can also be a game changer. It can be the difference between someone sloughing off a woman's health experience, whether it's in the lunchroom, the boardroom, or your doctor's office. Language can be a game changer. Just even instilling confidence where you can say, you know what? I realize why you might have thought that it's this way, but here's what it actually is. Let me set the record straight for you. And then it kind of creates this community of expanded education. And as I was saying off the top, I mean, if this weekend you are seeing family members, I know it's Mother's Day coming up. I don't want to date this too much, but I'm a huge advocate for take one thing that you learn and tell three people. Tell someone older, tell someone younger, and tell a peer, a friend, a sister, a coworker. Because if all of us do that, it is definitely, I promise you, a game changer. As I mentioned, my name is Shirley Weir. I'm the founder of Menopause Chicks. I am blessed to do this work. It's actually an honor to me. What started as a blog off the side of my desk 13 years ago quickly morphed into my full-time vocation. I love digging into the research and the clarity and the information in the women's health space. I study with the Menopause Society, the International Menopause Society, and the International Society of Gynecologists, and I bring evidence-based information into real-world language so that we can feel informed and confident navigating our healthcare. I want to begin with this post-it. Now, this has been part of my, if you've been here before, you'll see a couple of slides tonight that you may recognize, but I love this post-it note exercise because it was what drove the creation of Speak Menopause. So some of you may recognize some of these post-it notes. I hope your steering wheel's not covered in them. And if you can right now, reach for a post-it note. That would be amazing, or do it after you leave. But I want to invite you to write these 5 words on a post-it note. I deserve to feel amazing. And the act of writing it can be quite therapeutic, actually. And then you get to decide whether you want to underline the word amazing, which is what I always underlined originally. And then this year I was like, wait a second, Shirley, you're underlining the wrong word. You have to underline the word deserve. I deserve to feel amazing. And it's a very powerful paradigm shift from a lot of the menopause narrative around this is, a recipe for suffering. This is something you have to white knuckle and just get through. Neither of those things are true. You deserve to feel amazing. The second part of this exercise is that you must take your post-it note and hang it somewhere where you and perhaps the other people that you live with are going to see it every day. So maybe that's the bathroom mirror. Maybe it's the first thing you see when you wake up. Maybe it's the front of your refrigerator. Maybe it's your cubicle at work. And if you want to snap a picture of that and send it to me, I would love to see that. And that's exercise. That's all the exercise I'm going to make you do today. um, because why are we doing all this? Why are we talking about language? Well, it leads to understanding if we know that the biggest gap in women's health is not actually menopause. The biggest gap that we're all trying to close by having these conversations is our inability to see what the problem is. So think back to the elephant. You know, there's a lot of different people in all of those different categories. And the people in the product development, they think they know what the problem is, and they're developing something without actually understanding the full landscape. And the medical community, the same. I mean, bless them. They work in a system that wasn't designed for women's health. And many of them are doing really good work, but many of them still have some catching up to do. And that's at a cost of our health. So super important that we understand first that we haven't historically been able to identify or see the problem, and we don't have a collective table of people coming together and saying, yes, we agree, this is the problem. We're all kind of throwing spaghetti against the wall and hoping that something sticks. So, my favorite quote is by Gloria Steinem, and that is, our first challenge in starting any learning is not actually to learn something new, but perhaps it's to unlearn. It's what we're bringing as a stereotype, a myth, an understood reality, a misunderstood reality, because if you hear something over and over again, and even if it's untrue, it becomes your reality. So being open to unlearning is just as important as signing up to learn something new. I have another post-it note, and I'm sorry that it's blurry, but this was sent to me by one of my members after a masterclass. I think it's 3 years ago now, 3 summers ago. And she sent me a text and she said, Shirley, I'm really sorry that I had to leave early, but my doctor's appointment was right after the class. And so I took my post-it note. I put it on my purse and I went right in to see my doctor. I took your script tips. I had the best conversation I had ever had with my doctor, and I walked out with the treatment that I had been contemplating, worrying, stressing about. Hadn't had a very good experience the last time I went to see this physician, and I walked out feeling like I am in charge of my own health. So that was definitely a good story, which then led me to think, what if we could all walk into our health appointments with a post-it note on our purse, or even wearing a sticker that said, or a button or a t-shirt that said, I speak menopause, and letting our health team know that we had already invested in some level of education and that we were there to get their expertise or their ability to customize a treatment plan for us, or to plan an element of our health care, our current or future health care for us. And that's part one. And then I imagined, okay, does everybody know that feeling of when you're in like a strange place and you don't speak the language and you have to come up with some form of communication? Maybe it's you have to go to the washroom or the bathroom, and you're like, finally, after trying to do all the hand signals, you run into someone who speaks your language, and you're like, whew, made it just in time. I feel so good. I feel so validated. That was the feeling that I was going for in this, because in the upper left-hand corner of your screen is Dr. Lori Alpert, and the bottom is a gynecologist from Toronto. I'm sorry, I forget her name. I met her in Shoppers Drug Mart one day. These are two examples of healthcare professionals who speak menopause all day, every day. So walking in to see your practitioner, looking over, and maybe this is your primary care provider, your family doctor, and you're like, oh my gosh, that mug, it says they speak menopause too. And then you know that you're going to get somewhere in the conversation. And these are all like, they don't have to exist. I mean, I like the merch, but they don't have to exist in real life. It's just a way to visualize or illustrate two parties coming together to solve the same problem, which is why we're here, right? And then that led to the development of the script tip method. And I'm not sure if everyone here has heard about that, but Speak Menopause is kind of the umbrella for what we're talking about today. One of the tools that we have is called script tips, and script tips are like fill in the blank way for you to prepare for your health appointment. I am not kidding myself. I don't believe that everyone needs to go into their health appointment and say the exact same thing, but I do know after testing this 10,000 times is that these acronyms or elements of these acronyms do work. They work to tell a story. They work to get your health story across to your health professional in a way that, they're a scientist sitting across the room from you, in a way that they can then respond and you two can work together on solving that solution. Oh, I just want to make sure. I'll get into what the acronym means later on in the presentation, but it's a double acronym, bottom right-hand corner of your screen, GAP, speak. You can screenshot if you want that, but I do have a tool for you, which is one of the things that we're going to have as a takeaway tonight. G is for goal of the appointment, A is to repeat your age, and P is date of last period. This is done very quickly at the top of your appointment because it allows you to set the tone. Goal is very good to articulate first. Don't begin with symptoms, but say, my goal is to solve for my sleep, or my goal is to make sure that I no longer live with vasomotor symptoms or incontinence, or whatever your top priority a health concern is that day. And then S is for symptoms, which we're really good at. P is for impact to quality of life, which we're not so good at yet. We're very good at saying symptoms. zipping up our lips, sitting back and waiting for our doctor to respond. Whereas if we can lean in and describe the impact that it's having to our life, there is no way that a healthcare provider can argue with that. If I say to you, I have chronic insomnia disorder. I wake every morning at 3 a.m. I can't get back to sleep. And this is impacting not just my relationship with my kids, who I'm yelling at every single morning as we're heading out the door, but it's also impacting my income because I realize because of insomnia, I'm actually calling in sick 2 to 3 times a week or a month, and that's impacting my income. Those types of impact stories are really hard to dismiss. And so it ignites something in our practitioners that they can then be like, oh, we have a problem here, but I know the three solutions, and then you can talk about what those are and what would be the best for the patient sitting in front of you. As I mentioned, we'll walk through that a little bit later. I want to take a quick second to walk through your bonuses. So everyone is either getting their free moisturizer, or if you're here on a free ticket, you're getting free shipping. And if you don't have those codes, watch your email tomorrow in the replay, and the deadline for those codes, which is super important. Also included for everyone in this is 30 days of unlimited one-to-one texting with me. So if you have a question that kind of needs a little bit of unfolding, peeling back the layers of the onion, or if you have 100 questions, all of that is absolutely fine. You have unlimited texting with me for the next 30 days. Please use Messenger on Facebook. And the third bonus are 3 new decision-making tools, which will be launching May 16th. I can't wait to share it with you, but it is going to be an app, a digital way for you to create your own script tips, as well as the Menopause Chicks Guide to Menopause Hormone Therapy. So you can actually shorten the list and prepare for your health appointment. I'll show you a mock-up of that a bit later. And we're going to have the same thing for your vulva and vaginal health. So how to make decisions. And you could use this if you're having this conversation with your mother as well. It's like, oh, mom, this is for you. This is for you. And just make her health appointment that much smoother and that much easier. So our agenda is to knock off body language, and I'll let you know what that means in a second. And then we're going to talk through all the options for how to feel amazing. So translated, what that means is what are all the approved available options for you to treat any concerns you have with your body language. And thirdly, the Speak Menopause program. So starting with body language, this I have no doubt, if the whole entire world understood the roles and responsibilities of our key hormones when cycles are regular, we wouldn't have all of the misinterpretation that we have around menopause and all of the confusion. So understanding the roles of our hormones when cycles are regular during our reproductive years puts us in the best possible position to make the health decisions that we need to make when cycles are no longer regular. Why is this important? This is important because we are the first generation to reach 50 and have 50 or more years to plan for. And when I say plan for, I mean heart health, brain health, bone health, and genitourinary health. So many conversations about menopause default to vasomotor symptoms, which are hot flashes and night sweats. So many people in the world think that menopause equals women being too hot. It is not that. And we're going to show how understanding the roles and responsibilities of our hormones impacts our future heart, brain, bone, and genitourinary health. And all of the impacts can be prevented, and many of them can be treated. So let's begin with some definitions. This is my umbrella. Menopause itself, the word is an umbrella term. It is often used to describe women's reproductive health from um, puberty, sorry, not puberty, perimenopause, so age 35, all the way to grave. Okay, so on the left-hand side of your screen is perimenopause. Let me just let somebody in there. The handle in the middle is menopause, which is 1 day, and the right-hand side of the screen is postmenopause. Menopause is 1 day. It's the day on the reproductive calendar that marks the end of ovulation. Lots of people say it's the end of periods, but there's many reasons why someone might not have a period. They might have an IUD, they might have PCOS, they might have had an ablation, they might have had a hysterectomy. If they have their ovaries still, they have not yet reached menopause necessarily. So menopause is the end of ovulation, which then means the end of reproduction and the end of menstruation. On the left-hand side is perimenopause. We go through perimenopause. Our hormones might start preparing our ovaries for the end of reproduction in our mid 30s. That doesn't mean you suffer from mid 30s on. It means your hormones are preparing for the end of reproduction. And that can be hormones fluctuating, it can be hormones declining. It might show up as some disruptions, such as changes to mood, changes to sleep, changes to bleeding. It might show up as nothing at all. But as we get closer to the date of menopause, progesterone will be declining. And again, you might not notice anything, but a lot of women do notice changes to mood, changes to sleep, changes to bleeding. And that is the time, that year before we reach menopause, when the majority of women will also experience vasomotor symptoms, which is the correct term for hot flashes and night sweats. And that in and of itself can be confusing because the narrative around menopause is that if you still have a period, it's not menopause. So if you have vasomotor symptoms and you still have a period, you're like, oh, I must be the only one. Something must be wrong with me. No, that's actually quite common. What's not common is that you're meant to suffer. There are many approved treatment options on the menu, and menopause is like an invitation. In my world, menopause means we are being invited to invest in our heart, brain, bone, and genital urinary health. And that's why on the right-hand side of the screen is postmenopause. We are in postmenopause for the rest of our lives. Just like when we are postpartum, like after you've had a baby, they say postpartum. That's not just the 6 weeks after you have a baby. After you have a baby, you are always postpartum. And after you reach menopause, you are always postmenopause. And so at this point in our life, progesterone has declined and estrogen has gone for a steep decline. And as we're going to discuss, that has impacts to a lot of our major health systems. Now, I have the arrow for planning pointing backwards. So if you are here and you are in perimenopause, whew, amazing. Such an opportune time to learn about your health, invest in your health. Doesn't mean you have to do anything tomorrow necessarily, but you might want to. And might be when your plan begins. But it is never too early or too late to plan your health for the rest of your life. So you are here and you are 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, or beyond, there is still an opportunity for you to plan for your quality of life. I use this chart a lot. I love it for its simplicity, but I have to explain that it is a very simplified chart. Okay. This is a snapshot in time, and it's generally speaking what happens. It's simply a way to draw for us what estrogen does in our body from puberty to grave and what progesterone does. Okay. So on the left, you'll see that we have puberty. And that purple line is doing a little bit of a roller coaster. And some of you might recognize this as someone that you know yourself or knew or raised at age 10, maybe, where your body starts preparing for reproduction. There hasn't been a period yet, which means there hasn't been an egg follicle developed yet, but estrogen is doing the work for preparing the ovaries for those reproductive years. Progesterone is the green line, and it looks throughout our life like a bit of a hill, like a mountain climb to maybe the middle of our reproductive years there, which could be, 30, 35. Um, and then it slowly declines into perimenopause and then into postmenopause. In perimenopause, those years, they're very nuanced, very unpredictable, different for everyone. Nobody knows. People tell me, oh, I reached perimenopause when I was 37. Nobody knows. Nobody knows the day that they reach perimenopause, but certainly there could be a time where you might notice this, and this is estriol, which is one of three kinds of estrogen that our body makes on its own. And this is estriol doing quite a wild roller coaster, if you will. Now, what you might notice with the purple line and the green line is that in our reproductive years, progesterone was here and estrogen was here. And that was fairly predictable every cycle. And now you're in perimenopause, and some days, they're switching places. So estrogen is high or higher than progesterone. That could mean that you would notice symptoms of progesterone decline. You would notice those changes to mood or to sleep or to bleeding. And this could change. This can change year to year, but it can change month to month, week to week, day to day, even morning to night. So there's quite an opportunity for fluctuation there. And that is the definition of perimenopause. And then the definition of postmenopause, look at the tails of the purple and the green line. They are both tanked, but at menopause, at the end of ovulation, estrogen is done. It's like, whew, and we're going to talk about my analogy for that. And then, of course, the red line is kind of how symptoms, or maybe a better word there might be impact to your quality of life. And that could be overt impact, or it might be silent impact. And I'm going to walk through what I mean by that. In a couple more slides. But this slide is a summary of some major hormones and understanding what their jobs are. So the reason that there is watermelon for estrogen is because estrogen is our juicy hormone. While it does take care of our heart, our brain, our bones, our vulvas, our vaginas, it's also our juicy hormone, which means it protects our skin when cycles are regular. It's responsible for the moisture in our eyes, our mouth, our vulvas, our vaginas, our joints, keeps our joints juicy as well. And estrogen has hundreds of roles and responsibilities. We have estrogen receptors everywhere in our body, in our ears. You've heard of itchy ears, everywhere. Oh, sorry. And I wanted to mention estrogen is the hormone that's produced in the first half of the cycle when cycles are regular. So the first 2 weeks of the cycle, the brain sends a text message to the ovaries and says, hey, make her some estrogen, develop an egg follicle, and send it on its way. It's a really strong, feisty hormone. And if you are still ovulating, or you remember when you were ovulating, you can remember sort of how you feel during those 2 weeks. You might have had a very defined experience. And then the egg is developed and it's sent on its way. And the second 2 weeks of our cycle, when cycles are regular, progesterone is produced. And that's another text message. The brain is texting the ovaries saying, make progesterone. She worked so hard those last 2 weeks developing that egg. Send her some progesterone, support her mood, support her sleep. The reason I used figure skating here as an analogy, these are my favorite ice dancers. And it's because progesterone is the perfect dance partner for estrogen. It's like estrogen is strong and feisty, and along comes progesterone, and it's like, I've got you. I am here to be your calming hormone. It does support mood, it does support sleep, it also regulates bleeding, and it supports the lining of the uterus. Testosterone, bottom left hand corner. Testosterone is not a male hormone exclusively, and it is not a sex hormone exclusively. Women make testosterone. It is responsible for our sexual desire and our sex drive, but the reason that Superwoman is in the picture is because testosterone is also responsible for our confidence and our motivation and our energy to a certain degree. So, very important hormone. The next one, I have iron and thyroid in the same box. Iron is not a hormone. Iron is a very important mineral. And for women who still have a period, about 40% of us will be iron deficient. And often the symptoms of iron deficiency get misunderstood as symptoms of estrogen or progesterone decline. And so we have a whole bunch of women walking around the world living with fatigue, exhaustion, hair loss, low immunity, pale skin, restless legs, heart palpitations, and they're iron deficient, and it's been misdiagnosed or underdiagnosed. I put thyroid in that same box because thyroid is a hormone. It's also a gland, but symptoms of thyroid conditions can mimic or be the same as symptoms of iron deficiency. So it can also be fatigue, exhaustion. It might be inability to lose weight as well. And thyroid conditions are the most underdiagnosed conditions of women. So pass this along this weekend to all your friends and family. Women should be having their thyroid checked at least once a year. And finally, on the right, my friend, the cortisol queen. Cortisol is an important hormone. It's our stress hormone. We need cortisol. We just don't need too much of it at 3 in the morning. The roller coaster is often used as a visual for perimenopause. The reason why is because estrogen is high or higher, progesterone is lower. Um, I don't really care for roller coasters. I don't know about you. I meet a lot of women every day in the menopause chicks community who are like, get me off of this ride, please. And I totally understand that. Sometimes that's easier said than done because perimenopause itself is a very new term and new concept. It was only coined in 1996. There is research, there's a lot of research on perimenopause and progesterone, but it's certainly not enjoyed the spotlight the way estrogen has. And the defining characteristic of perimenopause is that decline in progesterone. So I think that's why there is a lot of confusion in perimenopause. We can talk about navigating the noise if you like once we get to the Q&A. Menopause, sometimes I say there's very little to say about menopause. It's one day you can invent a cupcake or a mocktail or a cocktail to celebrate. I mean, we have so much to celebrate. We've got 5 more decades to plan for. That's exciting. Many women that I meet are changing careers or partners or running for office or running marathons. I mean, there's just so much to celebrate. But menopause as a biological definition means that we can no longer conceive. That is the real only symptom of menopause is that you can no longer get pregnant. The tricky part is that we are born with all of the egg follicles that we will ever have. It's a myth if someone tells you you're born with all the eggs that you'll ever have. You're born with all the egg follicles. In order to get those egg follicles to develop, estrogen and progesterone text messages need to be going from the brain to the ovaries. And generally speaking, that slows down around the average age, they say in North America is 51. I think that number is going up thanks to evolution. But the longer we're making those hormones, actually, the better, as long as we're having real well-informed conversations about contraception. And the International Menopause Society recommends that if we reach menopause, which would be if it's natural, 12 months after your last period. So you actually reached menopause 12 months ago, but you need to go 12 period free months. And again, that's just an agreed term. It's different for everyone. There's nothing magical about 12 other than that a group of doctors sat around a table and agreed to it. But usually, if you've gone 12 months without a period, you are not going to ovulate again. Some women go 13, 14, and then they have another period. And that can sometimes depend on the age that they're at as well. The International Menopause Society recommends that if you reach menopause and you are under the age of 50, that you continue to use contraception for 2 more years. And it just helps to protect that if there is another egg developed. And then if you reach menopause and you're over the age of 50, to continue to use contraception for 1 more year. And then it's skydive time. I use the skydive analogy or sometimes the cliff dive to represent estrogen. Progesterone has been declining since maybe our mid 30s. But when we reach menopause, let's say in our early 50s, estrogen goes for a huge decline. And sometimes that is very dramatic. And if you think back to what we talked about on the watermelon screen, this can impact a sudden onset of dryness. That might be dry eyes, dry mouth, like I have right now because I've been talking too much, vulva and vaginal dryness, reoccurring urinary tract infections because the urethra has shrunk. It's gotten shorter and smaller, which makes it more susceptible to infection. Atrophy, which means that the vagina is actually shrinking in size. It might mean new onset of joint pain, joint aches because of the lack of estrogen. It could be continued vasomotor symptoms. Vasomotor means that our blood vessels, our blood, if this is, I have a blood vessel in my hand right now, our blood vessels are constricting and dilating. And that's what causes the change in temperature. I like to call them by their proper name, vasomotor symptoms, because I don't think that we should be using slang when it comes to women's health. We don't use it when we talk about erectile dysfunction. And I have grown up in a culture where hot flashes have sort of become the punchline of a joke, or they've become the image of the gray-haired woman holding a fan on the internet. And that's not what we're talking about. We are talking about a vasomotor event, and they are worthy of treatment, whether that's hormone treatment or even non-hormone treatment. They are worthy of not disrupting your quality of life. The other thing that happens when estrogen goes for a skydive is that blood pressure, I'll use this hand, blood pressure and cholesterol tend to go up. And those two things are generally symptom free. We do not always know when our cholesterol is increasing unless we're having it checked via blood test. We might know if our blood pressure is high, if we have maybe headaches, but many of us do not know if our blood pressure is above normal or above average. And what's the number one premature killer of women? Cardiovascular disease. So we actually have this invitation that's coming to us. If we know that estrogen is going for a skydive and we're having vasomotor symptoms, it doesn't mean you have cardiovascular disease. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we are being invited to prevent it. What if everyone went to their doctor, went to their primary care provider at menopause or 5 years before, or a day before, or the day after, or whatever, just to have their blood pressure and cholesterol checked? And what if that monsoon of health checks for midlife women was 10 years earlier than what it is right now? because right now it's early 60s. And if we could back that up by a decade, we could turn down the dial on cardiovascular disease because we could catch it earlier. And then you could talk about treatments with your health team and or make lifestyle changes that might influence that. So it's an opportunity. The skydive is actually an invitation. Reaching menopause is actually an invitation. Perimenopause is actually an invitation. It doesn't matter what age or stage we are at, we are being invited to prevent and or treat. Because what if what we're doing here tonight is actually turning down the dial on the glaring statistics for women's heart disease? Every 22 minutes in this country, Canada, a woman is dying, is experiencing a premature death due to cardiovascular disease, heart attack, and stroke. What if we could turn down the dial on dementia? Estrogen supports the brain health too. And that doesn't mean that estrogen therapy is approved or going to prevent you from getting dementia. But we do need to know that dementia impacts more women than men. So we continue to outlive men. We live longer and we live longer with these health conditions. So that's an important part of the invitation too. And what if we could turn down the dial on fractures and osteoporosis? Probably the most impactful insight I got when I started learning about menopause and the roles of our hormones is that it affects our bone density. When we no longer have that regular estrogen production, we lose bone mass. And in fact, we lose 20% of our bone density in the first 5 years of postmenopause. That doesn't mean that if you're past that date, that you can't do something right now to protect your future bone health. And it might include menopause hormone therapy, which is approved for the prevention of bone loss, but it needs to include an entire bone health strategy, which would be nutrition, exercise, strength building, balance exercise, quit smoking. I forgot to mention that. Please, please quit smoking. And then having an informed conversation about the potential benefits of menopause hormone therapy for you. Genitourinary health, I put all in brackets because if we live long enough, all of us will experience changes to our genitourinary health, vulva and vaginal dryness, reoccurring UTIs, or the health of the urethra will make us more susceptible to that. Bladder changes, incontinence, and overall pelvic health. And when I say that, I mean that we are likely to experience some degree of a pelvic organ prolapse, where an organ in the pelvic floor is going to move out of position. And that might not impact your life at all, or it might impact your quality of life greatly. If it's the uterus or the bladder that descends, or it's the rectum bulging into the vagina, it can impact everything from constipation to your ability to walk, move, exercise, do the things that you love. So, very important. And then finally, incontinence is the number two reason that a woman gets admitted to long-term care. We need to turn down the dial on all these things. And that's why I'm so grateful that you showed up tonight and you are going to be that beacon of taking this information and paying it forward, because it is all about our heart, brain, bone, and genitourinary health. This is a pyramid. Some of you may have seen this before. I originally called it the hormone health pyramid. The reason I throw this up here is to help us in decision making, especially if we're experiencing something and we're saying, okay, I don't know, did Shirley say that's a symptom of iron deficiency? Or what if I just go and get hormone therapy and that will be a magic wand? And that was actually why I created this inverted pyramid, is because I did have a lot of members thinking that menopause hormone therapy was a magic wand for everything. And it's not. It will give us back some of what our ovaries used to make on their own, but it is not a magic wand for everything, especially If what you're experiencing is related to lifestyle, eat, move, or sleep, we'll talk about sleep and insomnia tonight. What if it's related to stress? This requires a really honest conversation with ourselves. I know for me, I have experienced burnout many times in my life, and ironically or not, it usually comes up when I look myself in the mirror as I haven't been exercising, I haven't been practicing mindfulness, I haven't been walking in the forest near my house. And every single time I reintroduce those things into a regular routine, it makes a huge difference. Nutritional support, we do need to ask ourselves questions like, am I iron deficient? That can be easily checked with a ferritin test through our doctor, or maybe it's vitamin D that you're really low in. Maybe it's magnesium. Maybe it's omega 3s. Omega 3s are also very supportive for cardiovascular and brain health. And then the next section, it does say thyroid because I am an advocate for making sure that we don't under or misdiagnose thyroid, but it could also say any other health condition. Let's face it, we're at an age where there could be lots of other conditions that are overlapping our current hormone health. Could even be things like grief or separation or divorce, but it could also be another chronic health condition that's impacting, and you're like, I don't know, is this, related to hormones or not? And then hormone therapy is at the bottom, not because it's the least important, just to make sure that we don't use it as a perceived magic wand for everything. Menopause hormone therapy is approved for the treatment of vasomotor symptoms, bone loss prevention, and the prevention and treatment of genitourinary conditions. Everyone postmenopause needs to prioritize their genitourinary health and then have an informed conversation with their health team about the potential benefits of hormone therapy for them as it relates to treating vasomotor symptoms or investing in their bone health. And then the plus at additional positive benefits that I've added at the bottom is because there are, you know how you always hear when you're talking about prescription treatments, you always hear about side effects and they're usually bad. Well, the thing with menopause hormone therapy is that there are additional positive benefits when we give our body back what it used to make on its own. One of those blatant examples is sleep support. So, progesterone is the hormone made in the second half of our cycle, and its role is to support our sleep. And so taking menopause hormone therapy can certainly support sleep. Why is it not approved for the treatment of sleep? Well, sleep can have many conditions. Chronic insomnia disorder, for example, or sleep apnea. Progesterone therapy is not going to solve that. It might add some level of support. And then, of course, for many women, it's progesterone is like, that's all I need for my sleep. I'm good, right? So we have to make sure that we're having these informed conversations and understanding everything that is on the menu for us that's available and approved for treatment. Okay, some quick sections here. This is a merged, a shortened vulva and vaginal dialogues section. So anyone that's already watched the video on vulva and vaginal dialogue, just bear with me for a second. This might be repeat or review, but it also could be something new to you and that you can share with all of the vulva owners in your life. We are going to talk about what causes vulva and vaginal dryness, and then the approved ways to prevent and or treat. Hyaluronic acid is not an acid. It's a molecule. It's a moisturizing molecule that our body makes on its own. And what I'm about to say is going to sound very similar to what I said earlier about estrogen. Hyaluronic acid, as a moisturizing molecule, it helps to keep our eyes moist, our mouth moist, all of our skin, including our vulvas and vaginas. Hyaluronic acid as a moisturizer is approved by all the menopause societies, all of the gynecological societies, Health Canada, for the treatment, the prevention and treatment of vulva and vaginal dryness. But hyaluronic acid that we made on our own, it started to decline in our 30s and in our 40s. So that might have been around the time where you noticed maybe your skin got drier, maybe you just realized that whatever products you were using weren't as effective as they used to be. That could have been the result of a decline in hyaluronic acid. What else causes vulva and vaginal dryness? Fluctuating hormones in perimenopause, the decline in estrogen at postmenopause. Postpartum is another time in our lives where hormones are fluctuating. And if you know someone who has had a baby recently, do let them know this because I worry that they might be experiencing dryness and thinking they're the only one and worried that something is terribly wrong and it might be dryness. And so it's really important that we can support all of our new moms. The birth control pill can also impact vaginal dryness. So can any medication or treatment, including breast cancer treatment, but other medications that you're taking could result in dryness, and other health conditions, again, can overlap. And finally, overuse of pads and paper-based panty liners. So if you are bleeding irregularly in perimenopause and wearing a paper-based pad a lot, that could lead to or exacerbate um, dryness. If you are using paper-based liners or you know someone who is, for incontinence or light bladder leakage, it could be kind of there to protect one problem, but creating two more. So use NICS, use leak-proof underwear if you can. There's so many advantages to that. And yeah, this was like the one of the most under-discussed pieces of learning in our culture too, because we all see those, we've seen those ads on TV that's like they make it sound like everybody is wearing a paper-based liner and that it's just part of being a woman that you're going to leak urine, and it's not. And so go see a pelvic floor physiotherapist, discuss your strategy with them around how you are going to prevent vulva and vaginal dryness, and know that these are the treatment options that are available to you. Sexual activity is at the top of this list with a line through it. And let me explain. So, sexual activity with or without a partner does send good energy and blood flow to the pelvic floor. And if it's comfortable, that is great. But if you're already experiencing dryness or pain with insertion or touch, press the pause button on sexual activity until you can achieve treatment mode. And I promise you, you can achieve treatment mode. And I am like a dog with a bone. I won't give up until we find the solution that's right for you. Generally, that includes for all of us regular pelvic floor exercise. So something that has been customized for you by a pelvic floor physiotherapist, moisturizing with hyaluronic acid, getting curious about the benefits of hormone therapy systemically, although that's probably not going to treat vulva and vaginal dryness. It might help prevent it, but not a lot of the systemic hormone therapy that we take crosses over into our pelvic floor, and that's why we have to take vaginal hormone therapy as well, which is next on the list. It's either called vaginal hormone therapy or localized hormone therapy. It's often estriadol as well, an estrogen base, but it could be DHEA, which is another form of vaginal hormone therapy. You can see why I'm creating these decision-making tools for us so that it'd be easier for you to be like, what did she say? And then look it up and create your own, quote, shopping list, if you will. And then red light therapy is a form of, it is a Health Canada and FDA approved way to treat dryness by restoring some of the collagen in the skin cells of the vaginal wall. It's probably not going to treat the vulva in the same way, and then not approved by the FDA or Health Canada, but used by some women is laser therapy by a physician. It's not covered, it's not approved, and it's generally has a much higher price tag than some of these other options. So I'll tell you what I do, which is regular sexual activity, regular pelvic floor exercise, moisturize regularly every day. It's just part of routine, like brushing my teeth. I get out of the shower and I moisturize. I follow my hormone therapy. I've been on hormone therapy for 10 years and I use vaginal estrogen. I didn't start vaginal estrogen 10 years ago, but I know I started it, I don't know, into my early 50s. And I have tried red light therapy, but I don't use it on a regular basis. UTIs, I just need to mention quickly. This is where the urethra is, in case you've not seen the vulva puppet before. But this little rosebud right here represents the urethra. This is the clitoris, clitoral hood, the vulva, the urethra, and then the vagina is on the inside. Oh, on the inside. Um, that little rosebud represents the urethra. The urethra, as I was saying, gets shorter and smaller, and that makes it more susceptible to infection. The most common type of infection is a urinary tract infection. That's what UTI stands for. My mother, who died 18 years ago, suffered greatly from dryness and was never offered a solution. She had extremely dry eyes, dry mouth, dry vulva and vagina, vaginal atrophy, reoccurring UTIs, a bladder prolapse, and she was never offered treatment. And at the time, I didn't know how to help her. The other thing I want you to know about urinary tract infections is that when we're younger, the symptoms generally present as, perhaps peeing often or pain with urination. And UTIs in older people can present as confusion and forgetfulness and not have any of the classic symptoms, or maybe the individual is not communicating those classic symptoms because they think it's just part of being older. And so they can get sent down a dementia treatment track, which is what happened to my mother. She was being treated for dementia when she died. And now I look back and I wonder, huh, when we got the autopsy results back, there was no sign of brain decay or decline. And I'm wondering if she did pass away from sepsis. So that is your public service announcement to pee on a stick, test for UTIs, and if any of your loved ones are showing early signs of forgetfulness or confusion, have them pee on a stick as well. It's super easy to test for, it's super easy to treat. Although, if one of your loved ones is having more than one urinary tract infection a year, that's called reoccurring. And the Canadian and the American Urological Association recommends vaginal estrogen for the prevention of reoccurring UTIs. So that is really important. And I don't know if you noticed or if we even talked about it back here on this slide. This slide, UTIs, it's on the genital urinary health line, and then I've got plus UTIs equals 11 million. There are 11 million recorded doctor's appointments for getting antibiotics for urinary tract infections a year. They're recorded. I talked to gynecologists who are like, that's way low. It's just they're not all recorded because they're being bulked in with other conditions or other treatments. What if we could open up 11 million doctor's appointments this year by getting every woman on vaginal estrogen, preventing those UTIs? One, we would create less pain and suffering. Two, we would open up all of those health appointments. And three, if you are someone who is taking more than one round of antibiotics for a UTI a year, and then it becomes less effective the more you take antibiotics, and then you get another type of infection that you really need antibiotics for, and they're not going to be effective to treat that infection. So we have to prevent UTIs. Like, I need a billboard, and I need you to be the billboard that shares that with everyone that you love. Okay, insomnia. I'll talk about my mother again, actually. My mom had a lot of good advice, and one of her pieces of advice that my sister and I grew up with was, Shirley, sleep is the best medicine. And she navigated a lot of things in her life, and she was right. I mean, there's a lot of things that we can do better. There's a lot of decision making that will be better for us if we are able to sleep through the night. But fast forward, we are a culture and a society that almost wears sleep deprivation as a badge of honor. And then when you couple that or overlap it into the conversation around women's midlife health, there's a narrative that says, oh, yeah, no, every woman wakes up in the middle of the night, wakes up in the middle of the night to pee. No one's sleeping anymore. We're all tired, Shirley. It's just part of getting older. It's just part of being a woman. It's just part of being a healthcare worker, as this person in our picture. And so, what I want to do in the next couple of slides is make sure that you are able to understand and discern the difference between, well, successful sleep. Let's start there. Successful sleep, disruptive sleep because of progesterone decline, and chronic insomnia disorder. Okay. So, what I have on the slide for you is the definition of chronic insomnia disorder. This is how to self diagnose. Chronic insomnia disorder is not diagnosed in the doctor's office, it's diagnosed in your bedroom. And the definition of chronic insomnia disorder is when any of these four things happen three or more times a week: difficulty falling asleep, difficulty staying asleep, waking too early and not being able to get back to sleep, and daytime consequences. Daytime consequences are those things that impact our quality of life the next day due to disruptive sleep. That might be challenges in your relationship. It might be inability to focus to do your job. It might be inability to care for younger or older family members. So anytime something like that happens three or more times a week, you meet the criteria for chronic insomnia disorder. I've done two sleep surveys with the Menopause Chicks community, and this is what chronic insomnia disorder looks like in the Menopause Chicks community. But let me just start by saying that 1 in 11 Canadians, all genders, live with chronic insomnia disorder. 1 in 11, all genders, all ages. In the Menopause Chicks community, these respondents were age 45 to 64. We have 70%. You have to add the daily and the three or more times a week together to see that 70%, that's a lot, of our members meet the criteria for chronic insomnia disorder. So we asked you, maybe some of you took this survey for me, and thank you if you did. Oh, sorry. And this chart just recommends what their diagnosis represented. So the biggest band is that second layer is difficulty staying asleep. So that was 64.43%. And then we asked you, what is the biggest challenge you have between where you are now, chronic insomnia disorder, and achieving successful sleep? And my hypothesis going into this question was this blue arrow. I thought everyone was going to say, oh, talking to my doctor, knowing what to say, being dismissed, not having a very successful conversation, because I hear that over and over again. Well, I was so shocked and surprised to find out that 60%, so 70% of chronic insomnia disorder, 60% are thinking that they should be able to handle sleep on their own. or on our own. And I think that is so indicative, and probably in hindsight should not be surprising, but so indicative of women's health. A, a pillar of health that's as important as our cardiovascular health and our brain health. Sleep health is that important because it influences both of those systems in our body. And we're walking around thinking, yeah, I should be able to handle this on my own. Maybe I'll have another glass of wine. Maybe I'll try CBD. Maybe I'll do what my neighbor does. She takes melatonin. And we are not in those narratives or those types of paradigms asking for help. And there are approved treatments for chronic insomnia disorder that you can choose or not choose. But if you have a chronic disorder, it's important to also have an informed conversation with your healthcare provider about what the solutions might be for you. So we've talked about progesterone supporting sleep. Progesterone is not a treatment for insomnia. This slide, sorry, speaks to the short term and the long term consequences of not asking for help. We talked about progesterone. Progesterone is very important on the health agenda, but it's not going to be a treatment if you actually meet the criteria of insomnia. Where did that go? Sorry. Okay, I'm missing a slide from last night. So the two approved treatments for chronic insomnia disorder are CBT, which stands for Cognitive Behavior Therapy for Insomnia. So you'll see it written as CBT-I, Cognitive Behavior Therapy for Insomnia. It's a different way to, it's a proven method for creating a different narrative that we have around sleep. And it's very effective. I've met so many of my members who have just been like, surely it made such a difference. And I love to hear those stories. There are also new developments in pharmaceutical treatments that are not your grandmother's sleeping pills. They are treatments that are developed to treat the wakefulness part of our brain, which sits at the back, bottom of our head, just above the neck. And this is the part of our brain that's responsible for wakefulness. These treatments they're in the DORA class, so DORA. You can mention that to your healthcare provider. And they have been tested on women, and they do not have any next day hangover effects. So they're non-addictive. Not, I know of two, they're not all approved in Canada yet by all benefit plans, but they are approved in Canada to be prescribed. So, for example, my sister is taking one called Daviego, and her benefit plan covers part of it, but I think it's costing her about $1 a day or 350 or $60 a year, which is definitely worth it for her health and preventing, and helping to contributing to the prevention of cardiovascular or cognitive disease. So everyone is going to be different in how they approach that. However, how they approach their decision making. However, it would be great if everyone who experiences chronic insomnia disorder was having that level of informed conversation. Okay, hormone therapy time for the next few minutes, 10 minutes or so, and then we'll get into your questions and I might even rush through. I've got sort of like a Jeopardy thing, a bingo, couple bingo cards for hormone therapy because I get so many questions about menopause hormone therapy, but I would rather jump into the chat and find out what your questions are. And then if we have time, I could always come back to that slide. So menopause hormone therapy is the first line treatment recommended and agreed upon by all menopause societies worldwide. Okay. There are also non hormone treatments that are also approved by all the menopause societies in the world. But when I say first line, that means that they want everyone to have that informed conversation because there are very few women who have a contraindication for menopause hormone therapy. But if you do, there are non-hormone therapy treatments. So this is another umbrella. Hormone therapy is an umbrella term, and underneath hormone therapy includes the birth control pill, oral contraceptives. It includes the IUD, a hormone-based IUD. It includes tamoxifen, which is a treatment for breast cancer, which is a form of hormone therapy. So, excuse me, it's important to, when you see on the internet people talking about hormone therapy, they probably mean menopause hormone therapy, which is on the right-hand side of the screen. And if you're wondering why, I created just a bit of a timeline with perimenopause on the left and postmenopause on the right. So if you're wondering why progesterone therapy is on the left, is that progesterone therapy is often prescribed in perimenopause because progesterone is the first hormone to decline. And then as you get closer to menopause, reach menopause, or soon after, it's a very individualized decision, but you might add estrogen then, okay? And that is going to be symptom driven. So you could definitely have symptoms of estrogen decline before you technically reach 12 months period free. Okay. And on the right-hand side of the screen under menopause hormone therapy, it is a protocol. It's a bit like conducting an orchestra or solving a Rubik's Cube. It's not usually one and done. It's often very individualized, personalized to the individual and their symptoms of progesterone decline, their symptoms of estrogen decline, their symptoms of testosterone decline, which I can speak to in a minute. Um, and their health goals. And under health goals, of course, would be the prevention of bone loss and the prevention of genitourinary conditions. But the combination that makes up your protocol for menopause hormone therapy includes the right hormones for your age and stage, prescribed at the right doses for your age and stage, and delivered via the mode of delivery that has the best or the highest efficacy rate for you. So, what does that mean? Well, in some cases, mode of delivery means how the body takes in the hormone, which can be orally, transdermally, vaginally, even through a ring. Okay. In some cases, we are going to, the menopause societies, your doctor is going to recommend the mode of delivery. They're going to say, surely the best way to protect the lining of your uterus is to take oral progesterone, which I do. So it's a little round capsule like this. But and they might say for estrogen, we would like you to start on a transdermal estrogen, which means it's not metabolized by the liver. So it's something that you apply through your skin, and you have a choice, Shirley, if you want to use a patch or a gel. Okay, so it's a combination of making sure that you're getting what is going to have the best efficacy rate for you, plus consumer choice. And I love to celebrate consumer choice. Whenever we can have more things on the menu for women's health to solve more of the challenges that we are facing or the decisions that we're facing, it's a good day to have choice. Um, Okay, this is the bingo card I was referring to, and it's all the different categories of questions that I get around menopause hormone therapy. And it's actually 2 pages. So, how are we for time? It's 7:20. Let me just see. Okay. Huh. I'm gonna pick If it's okay with you, I'm going to pick a couple that are really popular from each page, and then we'll come back here during the Q&A if that works for you. So, what will I pick tonight? I am going to pick, I am going to pick what about testosterone? Because we haven't talked a lot about that tonight. So, as I mentioned, testosterone is a female hormone, and we can experience symptoms of testosterone decline, which might be related to sexual desire, sexual function. It could be related to loss of motivation, and testosterone therapy is not yet approved for women in North America, which really sucks, but it's also exciting because it is approved for women in 5 countries right now. And I know that all of us are going to live long enough to see testosterone approved by the FDA and by Health Canada. So I look forward to that. Right now, we sort of live in this crossroads situation where physicians can definitely prescribe testosterone therapy to women. What they're prescribing is generally a brand called androgel, which is what a man would receive as testosterone therapy. But one, it's being prescribed in an off-label format, which means it's being given for something other than what it was approved for. And two, it is prescribed to a woman at 1/10 of the dose that a man would be prescribed. There are not a lot of physicians who are trained in this or comfortable with it, but it is possible. And when it comes down to prescribing something in an off label format, we're all familiar with that, including our doctors, because the birth control pill for decades has been prescribed for in an off label format for things other than preventing a pregnancy. Take the birth control pill if your periods are regular. Take the birth control pill if you have acne, and so on. So, and SSRIs, antidepressants, are often prescribed for sleep and for all sorts of other things. So that's the update on testosterone. What if I'm over 60? Is also another common question that I get, and it is part of a guideline from the Menopause Society position statement on menopause hormone therapy that came out in 2022. And the guideline from the Menopause Society is that the best, which means the most opportune time to start menopause hormone therapy, is within 10 years of menopause. So if you're 56, that means the best time for you to start is between 56 and 66. If you reach menopause at 56, 56 and 66, or under the age of 60. And the reason that they state that guideline is because, well, we can prevent bone loss. We can prevent those numbers of osteoporosis and fractures, which have a huge impact, not only on the individual's personal health, but their caregiving team, their family, the number of surgeries, the number of admissions to long-term care as a result of somebody not healing properly, incontinence and dementia as a result. Like, it can be this huge domino effect. So back to the guideline. So a lot of people and a lot of physicians have misinterpreted this guideline as a deadline, and it is not a deadline. If you are in your 70s or your 80s and you want to have an informed conversation about the potential benefits of menopause hormone therapy for you, have it, and we can work on that together. But it's unfortunate that a lot of people have either been told if they're over 60 it's too late, or that if they've been taking menopause hormone therapy that they have to stop at 60. Neither of those things are true. The Menopause Society position statement on hormone therapy also states that there is no timeline for how long you can stay on menopause hormone therapy. Those decisions are made in an individualized conversation between you and your healthcare provider. So for me, as I mentioned, I've been on menopause hormone therapy for 10 years. I'm 59, been on menopause hormone therapy for 10 years. I'm at a point now where I review my protocol on the same thing. Um, I review the protocol with my healthcare provider once a year. If you're just starting menopause hormone therapy, I recommend that you review it like hopefully within those first 60 or 90 days because it does often need to be tweaked. But if you're on something for a long time and it's working, at least review it once a year. And that review conversation includes, has anything in my health changed? Have I developed another health condition that would possibly mean that the benefits of hormone therapy no longer outweigh any crossover risks with my other health? And what I'm saying in all that mumbo jumbo is, have I had a stroke? Have I had a stroke in the last year? I didn't mean to laugh there, sorry. Have I had a stroke in the last year? Do I have blood clots? If that's something that's happening, then I have to disclose that with my prescriber, and we have to have a really honest talk about continuing menopause hormone therapy. But if that doesn't exist, and even if it does, it's probably something that I will take for as long as I'm here. And then all of this that we're talking about, testosterone over 60, only applies to systemic hormone therapy. It doesn't apply to vaginal hormone therapy. So, vaginal hormone therapy doesn't cross the blood barrier, doesn't impact our major systems. It's called localized for a reason. It only treats the vulva and the vagina. So you can, and you should be using vaginal hormone therapy for the rest of your life. For if it's for no other reason than to prevent reoccurring UTIs, but it will also make sure that it helps with vulva and vaginal dryness, vaginal atrophy. It will help keep the bladder healthy, and that means that you will be able to sit comfortably, wear the clothes that you love to wear, exercise, dance, move, go to yoga, ride a bike, do all of the things that will bring you joy for the next 3 to 5 decades. Let's see what's on my next bingo card here. Okay, what should I pick here? Up here, I've done a lot of videos and there's a lot of information in the Menopause Chicks community about what is covered in the province of British Columbia and Manitoba. So if you're interested in that, you can text me and we can sort through that. UTIs, what if it's not working? Let's do that. I get a lot of questions about, I started menopause hormone therapy and I'm experiencing X. And X could be either it's not working, it's not treating my vasomotor symptoms, or it's created something new that I wasn't expecting. And a lot of the times that is breakthrough bleeding. And I get a lot of questions about what to do with that. So here's the strategy. It includes 4 questions. Anytime you are taking menopause hormone therapy and you experience something, you're not achieving results, don't talk yourself into the fact that you have to wait 6 months and it'll magically start getting better. No, within a few weeks, you should know if it's working. And if it's not, or you're experiencing something new, like new bleeding that you weren't expecting because it's postmenopause, return to your prescriber. And you want to ask these 4 questions. Am I taking the right hormones for my age and stage? That's important because if you're in perimenopause, you can take progesterone only, or some prescribers will say, yeah, here you go. Here's your prescription for estrogen and progesterone without realizing that that individual is in perimenopause. Estrogen is fluctuating high or higher. When it's high and you put estrogen therapy on top of that, it's now created the situation of being extra high or too high, which can create adverse health experiences. So, am I taking the right hormones for my age and stage? If you are on the postmenopause side of that umbrella and estrogen and progesterone, you know are have both declined, then the answer would be yes. And the next question would be vaginal hormone therapy. Are you taking vaginal hormone therapy too? So it would be three things. And then the second question is, am I taking the right doses for my age and stage? So there are recommended starting doses for all menopause hormone therapies. I'm going to share a tool that I've created, which is one of the gifts that we talked about in this class. And I just lost my train of thought. Sorry. Um, am I taking the right doses for my age and stage? So a new prescription would likely begin with those starting doses, but you would know, oh, I can increase that dose if I'm not achieving the health outcome that I set out when I initially started menopause hormone therapy. Very important conversation with your healthcare provider. Also, super important in those early days, if it's the first prescription that you're getting, that in 90 days, you're like, maybe I need a tweak because this isn't quite right for me. And so reviewing that, super important. The third question is, am I using the mode of delivery that's right for me? And I like to include this question because I don't want to assume that your skin absorbs transdermal estrogen the way my skin does. Or maybe you got the patch, but you're having trouble keeping it on. Maybe for you, the patch, which is like a slow release estrogen, I don't have an example here, but the first day you put it on, it's great, but then by the third day, you don't feel as good anymore. That might be a reaction to how your body is absorbing the estrogen. So you might say, I think I'd like to try like the daily gel, and then I know that I'm getting the same amount every single day. The fourth question is, when should I book my next review appointment? Nobody asked that. So I make you ask it. Ask your doctor, when should I come back here in 90 days? Should I come back here next month? Is it okay to leave this for 6 months or for 12 months? Know when your next review appointment is. And all of that said, is prefaced by an assumption that you are compliant. I don't say this a lot, but we are assuming that you are using the menopause hormone therapy and not forgetting to take it. You are using it the way it was prescribed. All those package inserts that look like a bunch of lawyers wrote them? Well, they did. Lawyers wrote them, and the reason that they are so lengthy is to protect the pharmaceutical company against patients who are non-compliant. So keep that in mind. There's directions from your doctor to your pharmacist printed on the outside of the package for a reason. That's what you're supposed to do. Follow those directions. Okay, it's Q&A time. I want to tell you about a couple of tools that I created. This one. So this is the two-part acronym known as script tips. Script tips is like an ad lib, fill in the blank, but we have put this into a digital tool for you. You can take it for a test drive. It's not live yet, but if you want to go to speakmenopause.com, you can definitely take it for a test drive right now. It will email you your script. Use it verbatim, take it on your phone to your doctor's appointment, or don't use it at all. Just like help it inform your next conversation and work it into the established relationship you already have with your care provider. I won't be offended at all. I just want you to feel both informed and confident when you go into your health appointment. I will be launching this as an app on May 16th. And so I'll tell you all about that in just a week or so. And the other tool that I'm really excited about is I have created the Menopause Chicks Menopause Hormone Therapy Guide, which will list all brand names of hormone therapy, what's in them, what's the molecular structure, what their starting doses are, how you should take it, anything that you need to, not how you should take it, like that I'm a pharmacist or a prescriber, not that, but whether or not it's oral or transdermal or vaginal, and anything that you might need to know about that therapy or that you might be curious about. And what is going to happen, this is not live, it's a slide, is let's just say that you're curious about progesterone and you want to include that in your next health appointment, then you would drag progesterone over to this selection list, which is like a bit of a shopping list or a to-do list. And then you can print that or you can keep it on your phone and take it to your health appointment. So instead of having 24 things to talk about, which can be quite overwhelming in a health appointment, and I speak to so many women who are overwhelmed because by the time they get to their doctor's appointment, there's a lot of information going back and forth. And then they get to the pharmacy counter, and the pharmacist says, I want to tell you all about this. And you're like, I have taken in so much today. And so I'm trying to reverse engineer that and saying, if you've got three things that you are curious about, put them into this list. And then when you get to your discussion with your doctor, you can say, I am curious about the benefits of oral progesterone and have that as your selection list. So more to come on those tools for sure. I can't wait. It's part of a bigger um, learning hub for all of us called Speak Menopause, which will have all of the content that has been living in the Menopause Chicks community and on the website and in various other locations. And I'm bringing it all together while creating some new tools, information on how to build your health team, a magazine, a podcast, and just trying to level up. I've been doing this work, as I mentioned, for 13 years. The Menopause Chicks community is 10 years old this month, this spring, actually. And I'm so proud that we've been able to bring the conversation this far. This wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for you and the questions that you have been asking over the years or how you're showing up at events like tonight. So with that, it's Q&A time. Let's do it. I gotta get this closed. There we go. There we go. How's everybody doing? Thank you so much. Let me get to the chat and find out what is on everyone's mind. Okay. All right. So I know where everybody is from, which is amazing. Would love to know if fasting is good or bad for hormones in menopause. I have no idea. Um, I'm not a nutrition or dietitian. I would ask a dietitian that question if it was me, and I probably wouldn't engage in anything that was like new to your routine um, on your own, is what I wanted to say there. Okay. Hoping to get some information about how to talk to my doctor about my symptoms in menopause. So hopefully, Lynette, is it? Hopefully what you've taken away from the conversation tonight is that you can now discern the difference between symptoms of progesterone decline, symptoms of estrogen decline, symptoms of testosterone decline, or something else like thyroid or iron deficiency. And so if you watch the replay, go back to the pyramid, it's also on page 21 of Feel Amazing if you need that, or page 14 to 16 is the list of common experiences by hormone. So under progesterone, you're going to see mood, sleep, bleeding. Under estrogen, you're going to see things like dry skin, dry vulva, vagina, joint aches and pains. I'm going to pop in the link to this book because it's free. And if you don't have it, you need to have it. You deserve to feel amazing.com. It's free, download it. Go to page 14, 16, and page 21. And I know you were looking for script tips, so we can do that together. You can message me through Messenger on Facebook. And if you want to just try that ad lib screen and take it for a test drive, you can go to speakmenopause.com. It just basically walks you through the acronym of GAP Speak, which is the goal of your appointment, is to talk about menopause hormone therapy, your age and your date of last period, the symptoms that you're having, the impact that they're having to your quality of life. That's the second P. So you might say things like, vasomotor symptoms are disrupting my work day, they're disrupting my sleep, or I'm experiencing incontinence, which is disrupting my quality of life, or I'm not sleeping, and that has huge impacts on my ability to perform my roles and responsibilities, whatever. Do describe the impact. And then E is for education. So you can say, well, I went to this event and I learned that X is equal to Y, or whatever you learn. And then A is for affirmation. And I love the affirmation part because I really think it grounds the whole conversation and it demonstrates in a very respectful way that you are driving your own health bus. So here's some examples of an affirmation. So maybe you've just said, I went to this event and I learned that joint pain could be the result of declined estrogen. And I know that I deserve to feel amazing. So that's an example of an affirmation. And then K is for key next steps. And so I'm inviting you now to work with me to help me decide what would be the next best steps for my shoulder pain, for my joint pain. Okay, I'll go back. I love it. Lots of questions, you guys. It's amazing. Okay, I want to increase my information base, and I believe as menopausal women, we've been highly underserved. I hope to change that for those coming behind me. Chris, that's exactly me. Thank you so much for saying that. I want to be educated about what prescriptions I should be considering for estrogen and progesterone. I am 66 and started menopause at age 50. I don't know your name, but hopefully you got what you needed, but you might need a little bit more. So you can text me and we can work through that together. You can use the tools that we've built, or you could continue to ask something in the chat here as we go today. In perimenopause, what effects on the female body would occur if ovaries and fallopian tubes are removed? What an excellent question. What is the most effective hormone therapy option? So, if the ovaries are removed, and it doesn't matter if the fallopian tubes or the cervix were removed, if the ovaries are removed, you reach what is known as surgical menopause that day, the day of surgery. So now your body has been shocked into not having that estrogen and progesterone that it was used to in prior to surgery. And I'm assuming you hadn't reached menopause. Yeah, you're in perimenopause. You hadn't reached menopause before surgery, so you hadn't experienced any of those hormones, dramatic hormone declines. So that is from a hormone therapy perspective, similar to someone like me who reached menopause at 49. So, estrogen and progesterone could be on the menu, and I'm using the word could with a little asterisk. So, estrogen and progesterone, because you deserve to have the benefits of those two hormones post surgery or post menopause, as well as vaginal estrogen. So, those would be the three things. The asterisk part. When we take estrogen, it cannot go unopposed, which means it must be partnered with progesterone. Estrogen and progesterone work together, perfect dance partners, right? And the reason that estrogen can't be taken by itself or go unopposed is because if it does, it will impact the health or the lining of the uterus. And you're like, oh, well, I had my uterus removed, so that's not an issue. I guess I don't need progesterone. That is a false narrative that has been perpetuated throughout healthcare by a lot of health professionals and a lot of women. To say that somebody without a uterus doesn't need progesterone is the same thing as saying that progesterone's only job in a woman's body is to protect the lining of the uterus. And that's not true. Progesterone, like estrogen, has hundreds of roles and responsibilities. And so if you don't have a uterus, you can still take progesterone. It's not going to do anything for your uterus because you don't have one, but it will potentially support your mood, support your sleep, and to a degree, it's going to support your brain health and your bone health in a way that was similar to how it supported your brain and your bone health before surgery. Hopefully that's clear. If it's not, just do reach out to me for more clarity and we can talk about how best to have that conversation. And specifically, what would you say if your doctor, your healthcare provider said, you don't need progesterone, you don't have a uterus, and brushed it off, then we can definitely develop a script for you to have that conversation. What will menopause treatments look like in my 80s? I've never had this question before, but I've got a story for you. I'm 75 and I'm on estradiol and Vexi, which I happen to have right here. Just got some. If anybody wants to see it, I'll pop one out. I'm on estrogen and Vexi now, and my doctor says we should reevaluate in 5 years when you're 80. Well, that's good. I've got a story that you can tell your doctor. This is Imvexi. It's a form of vaginal estrogen, one form of vaginal estradiol, and it's an insert and it melts upon body heat. So this is actually going to melt in my fingers if I just sit here in front of the light and let it melt. But it inserts and it dissolves, and it's an effective way for preventing vulva and vaginal dryness, atrophy, and UTIs. So you're 80 in 5 years, you will use vaginal estrogen for the rest of your life because you want to prevent UTIs. Tell your doctor that. You're not coming off it. The Canadian, I assume you're in Canada, the Canadian and American Urological Associations recommend vaginal estrogen for everyone for the prevention of reoccurring UTIs. Think about my mom. I wish she had have had the information that you have tonight. It could have maybe not saved her life, but it could have made her last few years and decades more comfortable, and it would have prevented a lot of pain and agony in her final years. So the story though is not about my mom. It's actually about my friend Irene. And Irene just turned 102 in March. And prior to her 100th birthday, I think when she was 99 or something, she moved into a new care facility. And my sister and I went to visit her just last fall. I think last fall, yeah. And so her and her daughter were sharing with us the story of how she had just moved when she moved into her new care facility. When she moved, she got a new family doctor because there's a family doctor assigned to all the residents where she lives. And he was reviewing her prescriptions. And I don't think she takes very much, but obviously she has a couple of medications. And he was reviewing and he said, "Oh, menopause hormone therapy." And then he looked at her and he said, "Well, who am I to tell you to stop taking something that clearly is working for you?" And she is a healthy 102-year-old, and she is going to exercise class and bingo and walking around her home and has all of her cognitive function. And I am not saying in any stretch that menopause hormone therapy is a longevity guarantee or that you will live to be 102 like Irene. A lot of factors have to add up in order to make that happen. But I am saying that she is 102 and she has been on menopause hormone therapy for over 50 years. So, just one example. Can females with cancer take menopause hormone therapy? If so, what are the safer options? So, I assume when you say with cancer that you don't have cancer now. Oh, no, wait. blob in my eye. Or do you mean that you're actually undergoing cancer treatments right now? Because it might be a little bit of a different answer, but let's assume that you no longer have cancer, but cancer is part of your history. Very important to understand that menopause hormone therapy does not cause cancer. Cancer and other health conditions are things that overlap the aging process. So as we get older, our incidence rate and our personal risk, which are two different things. The incidence rate is very different from what causes cancer, okay? Those things go up with age. So the example I'll use is breast cancer. 1 in 8 women get breast cancer if they live to be, if they're 85 years old. At 85, your incidence rate of breast cancer is going to be 1 in every 8 women. If you are younger than 85, that incidence rate is lower. The number one risk factor for breast cancer is having breasts. And I say that not tongue in cheek, but I've actually had women who have had a double mastectomy and they've had their healthcare provider tell them they can't have menopause hormone therapy because it might cause breast cancer. And they have to remind their physician that they don't have breasts. So having breasts is the number one risk. The number two risk for breast cancer is age. The number three risk is a personalized genetic risk. So that is going to be evaluated with you and your healthcare provider. And if you have a first degree relative, so not your grandmother's aunt's cousin's daughter, that's not a first degree relative case of breast cancer, which almost all of us have that relationship to someone who has had breast cancer. But if you have a first degree relative, like a mother or sister with breast cancer, you might want to have a deeper genetic investigation. Okay. And then there is a category called modifiable factors. And hormone therapy often gets put up as a big risk for cancer, when in reality, the biggest risk for all cancers is our use of alcohol, our lack of exercise, and our weight and or obesity status. So those are all things that are grouped into a category called modifiable factors. Nowhere on that list is menopause hormone therapy. Do women on menopause hormone therapy get breast cancer or get cancer? Yes, we do. As we get older, our risk goes up. Breast cancer, other types of cancer. But the root cause is not the hormone therapy. In fact, we lived in a healthy state with all of those hormones through our reproductive years, and menopause hormone therapy, when using estriadol and progesterone, is giving our body back a little bit of the same molecular structure that our bodies used to make on their own. It's a very individualized conversation that you are going to have with your healthcare provider. I am happy to help you make the scripts to have that conversation with and find out what the benefits and options would be for you. And this is a great time to also remind all of us, especially those of us that are taking this information and talking to others, that there are also approved treatments, non-hormone treatments, for vasomotor symptoms. So, and a non-hormone therapy treatment for vasomotor symptoms will treat the vasomotor symptoms. It doesn't treat, this is my job, is to make sure you understand without any like blind, oh, I'm okay, I've got it all taken care of. It will not take care of our bone health, and it will not take care of our genitourinary health. Although you can use non-prescription, this is like one part of the recipe for vulva and vaginal health, but two parts is best. Just like you're baking a cake, you need sugar and flour. To take care of our genitourinary health, we need hyaluronic acid and vaginal estrogen. Okay. I'll move on from there, but you can circle back and I can help you with your script. To determine hormone levels, what provides the most accurate results, a saliva test or blood test? The Menopause Society, the North American Menopause Society, does not endorse testing for determining menopause hormone therapy or hormone levels. Um, why do hormone tests exist then? That's a very good question. So, hormone testing is appropriate for certain cases. Thyroid testing is an example of hormone testing. So, test your thyroid, it's a blood test. My daughter was diagnosed with PCOS, which stands for polycystic ovarian syndrome. She was diagnosed at 17. She had her hormones tested at 17 because they were working on a diagnosis for why she didn't have a period, which meant she wasn't ovulating. And so she had her hormones tested. That's one extreme reason to leverage hormone testing. But the rest of the population doesn't need hormone testing. What we do need is to present to our health teams an understanding of what our health goals or our disruptive symptoms are, and then determine what the best treatment would be for that. Um, I was going to say one more thing there. Oh, just another example of hormone testing. So my sister reached menopause when she was 36. And so that's called premature ovarian failure or insufficiency. She had her hormones tested at 36 because they needed to rule out why she wasn't getting a period anymore at such a young age. And was it in fact menopause? So hormone testing was part of her diagnosis at that time, but for everybody, it's not recommended. Started hormone therapy 4 weeks ago. Pill form prometrium, 100 milligrams, and gel estradiol. We're taking the same protocol. Have had bleeding nonstop. Very interesting. I'm 64. Menopause on my 60th birthday. Should this bleeding eventually stop? No, don't wait. Should my prescription be adjusted? Probably. I just got a new GP and she immediately prescribed me hormone therapy on the first appointment. Yeah, so all bleeding post-menopause needs to be investigated. In this case, because it's in your mind probably directly related to the hormone therapy, it sounds like you're taking the right hormones for your age and stage in my opinion, but the doses probably need to be tweaked. And for bleeding, it's usually an increase in progesterone. So progesterone is approved for up to 300 milligrams, which would be three of these, but you would not go there probably. I mean, it's not a big deal, but your prescriber would likely increase this to 200 milligrams, leave estrogen where it is, and see how you do for the next 4 weeks. And that's pretty common. It doesn't mean that you would need to take 200 for the rest of your life, but you might be taking 200 for the next few months or even the next year, and then go back to 100 and see if all is well. That is very common. Another, just to make sure that you understand everything that's on the menu, another option would be an IUD, which is intrauterine device placed directly into the uterus to stop the bleeding. Most of my members in postmenopause are not interested in an IUD, but I mention it because if you're in perimenopause or contraception is on the table, then you need to know that that's also an option, and it treats the lining of the uterus. Well, I got three hand signals. I'm so happy. I don't know what I said, but I love seeing that there. I have the moisturizer, but it's really runny. Like it's sliding down my finger before it even gets to where it's going. I understand. Is this the consistency to be expected? Yes, absolutely. It is runny. And what I recommend is, first of all, it's a non-prescription moisturizer. And that means you get to make up the moisturizing protocol that works for you. So if you were moisturizing your face, if you were moisturizing your elbows, you would do it in a way that works for you. It doesn't have to be an exact pump. It doesn't have to be measured. And what works for me, because I use this twice a day, is I do one pump, insert it, and then one pump, and moisturize the vulva. And so just that routine has been a way to make sure that if you put two pumps and then you find it's running off your finger, it can be solved with just doing one internally and one externally. And yeah, it's a brand new formula created by a menopause certified doctor who specializes in vulva and vaginal and genitourinary health. It does contain hyaluronic acid and vitamin E. It has a shorter list of non-medicinal products than the original Feel Amazing had, and it doesn't have glycerin. And glycerin is on the Health Canada watch list. So it doesn't mean that glycerin in everything is bad news. I'm not saying that. But glycerin and the quality of glycerin is on the Health Canada watch list. And we are Health Canada approved. We have an NPN, which is a natural product number that has gone through Health Canada approval. And we wanted to make a moisturizer without glycerin because we don't want to have products that are on the watch list or that could be lower quality than what we deserve. So try the single pumps and let me know how it's working for you. For the folks who don't use Facebook or Messenger, how do we communicate with you? Well, that's a great question. Do you use WhatsApp? We can also do WhatsApp, and I can pop my phone number in here, or you can email me. And I'm just going to be honest. My email is a beast. It's 50,000. It's full to overflowing all the time. And the reason that I don't say chatting in an email is that I don't know if I can get back to you in a timely basis. But this is my phone number. You can text me or you can use WhatsApp, and you can email me if you are patient. Here it is. There we go. There, everyone can have it. Okay. How are we doing? Oh, I see we're at like the 2 hour mark, but if you want to stay, I'm happy to stay. Okay. Can the info chart be made larger? I can't read it. Yeah, absolutely. It's going to, that was just a screenshot of what I'm launching on May 16th. So you'll absolutely have readability and be able to make the font bigger. Do I need to take progesterone daily at age 66 if I still have a uterus and ovaries? I apply a small pump of it to the inside of my elbow on 2 nights a week. Interesting. So that sounds like a compounded progesterone. And I take zero point 0.5 milligrams vaginal estrogen cream. So those both sound like compounded prescriptions, which are not Health Canada approved. Don't really know. I can't really speak to doses because I'm not a prescriber. But I would probably want to set you up to have the best conversation with your prescriber. And if that's your family doctor, we could also talk about what would be appropriate for you in terms of moving to Health Canada approved menopause hormone therapy. But you would definitely, if you're just whether you're taking compounded hormone therapy or pharmaceutical hormone therapy, if you are using estrogen and you have a uterus, you must take progesterone. You do not want the uterine lining to grow, which can happen if estrogen goes unopposed. So that is, my friends, my second plug of the night for be compliant. We have to be compliant. If you take your estrogen and you forget to take your progesterone, you're putting your uterine health at risk. So sorry, dog with a bone. Okay. Is hormone therapy and creams, etc., only to manage the symptoms? If you are in postmenopause with no symptoms, should you take anything for other reasons for your health, for your heart, your bone health, etc.? The only issues I have are sore joints. So sore joints are a symptom of estrogen decline. Potentially, I'm assuming because you're in postmenopause. There might be other reasons you have sore joints, and you'd have to explore that with your healthcare provider. Maybe you have arthritis, or maybe an injury or something. But if it's achy joints from declining estrogen, then you do have symptoms. Hormone therapy is approved for the treatment of vasomotor symptoms, the prevention of bone loss, and vaginal estrogen is approved for the prevention and treatment of vulva and vaginal dryness, atrophy, which means the vagina shrinks in size, and reoccurring UTIs. So if you're saying you don't have symptoms, except for joint pain, so you do have symptoms, I hear that you're not having hot flashes and night sweats. That is very common. You might not have, not everyone has vasomotor symptoms. Um, and so you still want to have that informed conversation about the benefits of hormone therapy for you because you want to take care of your bones and you want to take care of your genitourinary health. Are you taking care of your heart health if you take menopause hormone therapy? I can't definitively say. So when estrogen is regular, or sorry, like when our cycles are regular and estrogen production is regular, we know that estrogen protects the heart and it protects the brain and it protects the bones and it protects our vulva and vaginal health. We don't have evidence that shows that estrogen protects or prevents cardiovascular disease. We might have some clue or indication in our lifetime, but cardiovascular disease or cardiovascular health is multifactorial, right? So it's going to depend on many things. Do you smoke? How do you eat? How's your sleep? How's your stress level? What's your genetic makeup? And where are you on the journey of perimenopause to grave? So a lot of things are going to make that up. And I know that the researchers are being very deliberate in terms of even what they're finding, how that information is being released or parlayed to the general public. Because what we don't want is that pyramid, the goal behind my pyramid image for every woman to be like, "Oh, I'm good in the heart department. I won't have a stroke or get cardiovascular disease. I'm on hormone therapy." That's not true. That's not true. So if you're taking menopause hormone therapy for the prevention of bone loss, alongside of lifting weights, not smoking, eating well, making sure your nutrition is there, and so on and so forth, you're taking care of your bones, there's going to be a spillover effect into your cardiovascular health. The other spillover categories are even though hormone therapy is not approved for the treatment of sleep issues, it's going to support your sleep. And if it's even though it's not approved for the treatment of mood disorders, it is going to support your mood, for example, because that's what progesterone does. And yeah, let me know if you have any other questions on that. My OBGYN has gone private and is now unaffordable. She was the one that started my hormone therapy last September. Where can I go now? I am going to need new prescriptions soon. My GP is not an option. Let me know where you live. Would be the best way for me to answer that question. And we can do that here, or we can do it via text message. But yeah, there's lots of options. There are a lot more options available than there even were this time last year. And I know that if you have a GP or a nurse practitioner, it might seem that that option is not available to you, but you might be surprised. We might be able to find a way to work with them. Just by showing up with the right information and depending on your own individual health profile. So let me know how I can best support you. Thank you for championing this topic and helping us meander through the complexities. It's my pleasure. I love doing this work so much. So much. How do I text you with my questions? Go to Menopause Chicks on Facebook and send a message, just like in Messenger. The name of the account is Menopause Chicks with Shirley Weir. Thank you, Shirley, for answering my question. I have so appreciated this presentation. I've so appreciated you being here and showing up. I've been using Feel Amazing since you brought it to the market. I haven't tried the new formula as I had a supply to use up. I love it and tell everyone about it. Well, thank you, Chris. Thank you for being a beacon. I love it. Thanks so much, Shirley. This has been a big help. I'll message you with my other questions. I can't wait to support you. I know that generally speaking, these events spark more curiosity and create more questions. And anytime I go to a learning event, usually the time I think of my best questions are when I'm driving home or the next day, you know. And so one of the reasons why I wanted to include 30 days of text messaging is because you might not even be able to think of what questions you have about sleep or vaginal health or hormone therapy tonight because it's been a long day, let's face it. And so tomorrow or for the next 30 days, anytime something pops up, or you're talking to your friends this weekend, your family this weekend, just pop me a question. I might not get back to you this weekend, but I will get back to you. All right. I appreciate all of your careful and informed replies to all of us. You're welcome. Oh, Donna, you live in Nanaimo. Okay, so in BC, we have a lot of options. Just because it's 10 after 8, would it be okay if we took this conversation to text message and we will figure something out for you? If not tonight, tomorrow. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. Watch your email tomorrow. There will be a copy of the replay, which you can keep and share with the people you love. And I will make sure that I repeat the directions for how you can claim your bonus gifts and the deadlines for that, because I want to make sure that nobody misses out on that. And with that, thanks, everyone. Have a great night.